John Cena recently said this.
But in 2012, the stock was trading at $11. WWE or TKO stock's now at 117. Wow. That's on his shoulders. There isn't a better indication of, and I know it's a team effort, nobody does it alone.
That's right. He has mentioned this before. But in the past, when he has been talking about our tribal chief, he usually says, well, look at the people he brought along the way with him. So he's talking about Sami Zayn and Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso and Solo Sikoa, and I guess everybody that's now involved in the Bloodline 2.0, because they're all getting the rub from Roman, whereas John, I don't think he said this specifically like this, because it's not true. He absolutely helped some people as well. But he never felt like he had as big an impact, I guess, on the industry as a whole in terms of building new stars and building new talent. But this time, when he was asked about this, he basically talked about metrics and numbers you just heard there about the stock price, and that the man at the center of all of that was indeed Roman Reigns. If we're going in the 10-year period that he mentioned, it's true. I mean, really, since 2015, and that's me being conservative, Roman has been the guy. Now, there was 5 years, if not 6, where this was a little bit of a nightmare because we should have just turned him into the head of the table, but we waited. And as we have chatted about before, it was one of the few positives, if you can even use that word, about the pandemic, because finally somebody said, oh, for goodness sake, just turn him into a bad guy. And do you know who that was? Roman Reigns. He ain't an idiot, man. He didn't want to say suffering succotash. It was just being a good employee and doing what his boss told him. But over the last 4 years, when he really has indulged his character, the WWE has blown up. Now, there's many reasons for this. The first is that they did have a cast of characters that all feel super over. You can see that now when you watch Raw and SmackDown. And yes, I know, crazy people, you're not going to like it. But it's also thanks to the invention or the birth of AEW. Now, this isn't specific to wrestling. This is specific to the entire world. If you do have 20 years of dominance on top, which is what the WWE had essentially from 2001 to 2019. I'm not saying they intentionally rested on their laurels. I'm saying a human being, even if it's deep down in their self-conscious, in their tum-tum, is just naturally going to be like, well, there's nobody nipping at my heels. Maybe we can just take the foot off the gas a little bit. But when all of a sudden AEW is here, and obviously the sort of things that fell into place, such as Vince McMahon leaving and TKO buying the company or Endeavor buying the company and Triple H taking the main seat. All of this kind of came together in a very well-timed pot when WWE was like, we're going to put our best foot forward, and the whole thing exploded, as we have seen. I mean, I think they just had their 38th sellout in 2024 or something like that, which is incredible. And the guy leading the charge for most of it is Roman Reigns. Now, of course, you have to give a shout out to Cody Rhodes, because when he came back at WrestleMania 38, my gosh, they had loads of people go back to watch WWE because Cody was their guy, but also it was just newsworthy entertainment. Again, we always go back to this as well. In the same 24-hour period, we learned that Steve Austin was probably going to be at WrestleMania 38, and we learned that Cody Rhodes is probably leaving AEW to go back to WWE, and the Cody Rhodes story had more interest. I'm not going to get into the if, buts, or maybes. That's just a big deal. It is. And if you want to argue with me, please do it in the comments and hit subscribe. But you can also make the argument straight away that Cody needed a good bad guy in order to become the goodest good guy. This is when we get into the Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock conversation itself back in the late 90s, which is what you can compare, we'll call it the Triple H era too, right? You're selling out places, you're making a bunch of money, you're doing crazy numbers of merchandise, everything feels hot. You can just announce a show and it's probably going to sell out or sell a lot of tickets of day one. And one of the reasons Steve Austin was able to be the best good guy ever was because he had the best bad guy ever in The Rock. And now we've kind of got that again. And also, people talk about wrestling being cyclical. It's true. What happened? Eventually, like, The Rock is too popular. We have to turn him babyface. What's happening now? Roman Reigns is too popular. He has to be turning babyface. And hopefully we do borrow from sort of the early 2000s, because The Rock didn't change who he was as a person. He just changed who he was mad at. So all of a sudden he was mad at the heels so we could cheer him, and he was a babyface. That's basically what Roman is doing too, because he's going after the bloodline. But the core of it all has been Roman Reigns. So yes, John Cena now says, from a numbers and cents standpoint, as long as other things, like again, he's attributed to him before, he is the greatest of all time. Now, this is why I like this discourse, because that is absolutely a sensible take and a sensible path you should be able to head in, and most people should be able to go, oh yeah, I see where you're coming from, Bill. That's a great point. But that's not what wrestling is all about, right? This is the counterpoint to all of it, and what I want you to engage in the comments below, is that wrestling is about feet. How many times have you been a fan of somebody and you just don't know why? Let's go back to the Hardy Boys. Most people, I don't want to say they preferred Jeff to Matt, but Jeff had something magical that drew people to him, and Matt was still an incredible wrestler, had an incredible career, but there was just a different feel around them. Now, I was a Matt Hardy guy. Why? I don't know, but I just was. Again, it's that incredible magic, I suppose, in pro wrestling, where you turn it on and all of a sudden you start gravitating towards people and you have no clue why this is happening, but your brain likes them. Now, I don't think anybody's going to come on here and say that either of the Hardy Boys are the greatest of all time, but that's a lie, and we asterisk it straight away, because there will be somebody out there watching right now who does believe they are the greatest of all time, and as cheesy and as stupid as and over the top as it sounds, that's because they made them feel a certain way. And I know I'm sounding very WWE at the moment, but it is true. Wrestling is about moments, and a moment can be a certain point in a match, a moment can be a storyline, a moment can be Sami Zayn getting bludgeoned at the Royal Rumble by the Bloodline. There are so many things, and it's also why I did a video about this the other day. Some people really hate the Ruthless Aggression era, and that's because they were brought up on the Attitude Era, and they're like, man, the Ruthless Aggression era is nothing like the Attitude Era. Whereas if you started watching, say, in 2005, you think John Cena in the Ruthless Aggression era is the best thing you've ever seen, because that was your first access to pro wrestling. It's why when I started watching wrestling in the late 90s, or the mid 90s, I suppose, nothing is ever going to beat that, because these were the heroes that were coming into my life when I was a very influential age, and everything was just so damn new and so damn exciting, and I'd never heard this story before. And the truth of the matter is, you grow up and you realize, oh man, you can't just copy and paste, but that's great, because whoever's in charge will always put their own spin on it. But we all have that one person that, again, we would probably put on our Mount Rushmore. We don't actually have any information or details or statistics or numbers to back it up. That's just the way that we think it. And I'm not going to do my Mount Rushmore here because I haven't really thought about it, but a couple of names I think have to be on it for that reason is Steve Austin and Bret Hart. And these are actually very interesting wrestlers to compare. Steve Austin, for any kind of attribute that you can come up to, can be a GOAT wrestler, right? He had amazing matches, he was super duper over the crowd, and he changed the business, and he made everyone a lot of money. When it comes to Bret Hart, arguably one of the best wrestlers of all time, I think that his promo ability is underrated, but that wasn't the sort of A-plus part of his game. And when it actually came to drawing money, he was still a massive draw. Go look what he did in Europe, but it was during a time the business was having a downturn in the mid-90s. So him and Shawn Michaels, you have to throw everybody into the pot, and Kevin Nash and The Undertaker, everyone from that period kind of got tarred with an unfair brush, because they were like, oh, well, you weren't able to turn the business around. I suppose, and it's different with John Cena, because without John Cena, who the hell knows where WWE would have been? John Cena was so damn important to WWE, sometimes I actually think he was the GOAT of wrestling, because not only did he have the longevity, but be it house show tours or certain shows that didn't actually look like they were going to sell enough tickets, it was John Cena that kind of got them over the line, which is why they relied on him so much and why they didn't want to turn him heel, because he had such an affiliation with the younger audience who are always going to be probably spending more money, because again, it's just the way that it works. They didn't want to lose that revenue stream, right? I don't want to break down the business part of it too much, because again, I want to focus on how wrestling does to your emotion. But we just jumped all around there too, but some people still say that Bret Hart is one of the best of all time, myself included, because he was one of the first guys that I saw, and I can't get a lot of what he did out of my head. And also, terrible use of language, you'll have to forgive me, especially because I do wrestle myself, but he made it feel real. And of course, wrestling is real, it's predetermined, but I think that phrase, it's still real to me, damn it. But when I used to watch Bret, I was like, he's actually kicking somebody's ass here. Did someone actually punch him in the face? Because that's the way that he approached the match. Now, I've got no problem with over-the-top wrestling, I've got no problem with goofy wrestling for life. We've talked about that many a time. But there will absolutely be people watching this right now so mad when they saw the title, Roman Reigns can't possibly be the greatest of all time. But actually, he is in the conversation. He's had one hell of a run. Again, for the last 4 years, technically the last 10 years, he has been the head of the company. And when he does leave, wrestling, or at least WWE, will be in a much better shape than it was before. Also, let's not forget, again, we do not know the information here, but it pops up every now and then. I don't think we talk about it enough. He is going through some kind of medical issues. He still does have leukemia, whether he's managed it or not. So the fact that he's able to do anything, I think is absolutely incredible. And I like to throw that into the well too, just because it just shows he's another level of performer. It must be so hard he must have down days. He's just a human being at the end of the day. But to power through regardless, I just think is absolutely incredible. But it's a conversation that can never have a definitive answer, because you start bringing in people like Hulk Hogan. I find him a very controversial figure these days, but he still has to be in that. And even going back to Bruno Sammartino. Now, again, this is why it's so hard to compare them, because in Bruno Sammartino's era, be it television, obviously social network doesn't exist, the internet doesn't exist. You compare. There are some metrics we have nowadays that you just can't compare to 40, 50 years ago. And Roman Reigns, ironically, is going to be acknowledged more by a greater amount of people because we just have more access to it. Like, my sister has no interest in professional wrestling, but she can be scrolling through her Twitter feed or Instagram feed and she will see Roman Reigns, and eventually she'll probably go, oh, that's the WWE champion, or whoever it may be, WWE superstar Roman Reigns. Doesn't know what he does, doesn't know the stories, doesn't know who he fights, but has an awareness. That ain't happening with Bruno Sammartino back in the day, because again, the accessibility was wasn't at the level it needed to be. So all of a sudden, it's like when you try and argue sort of who drew the most money and we try and bring inflation into it and you're like, okay, we're gooder than this, but gooder than this, we don't know. You just can't do it. And that's why the GOAT always has to be completely specific to you and what you believe wrestling to be. Because there'll be an old guy out there right now going, look, I beat Bruno Sammartino. And in many ways, he's right. He sold out Shea Stadium, he sold out Madison Square Garden, like thousands upon thousands of people. If anybody was able to do that regularly now, they would be even bigger than WWE were. But if you put Roman Reigns back then, is he able to do it? If you put Bruno Sammartino in 2024, is he able to do it? You'd imagine yes, because I think they all have special auras where they would just adapt to their surroundings. But at the moment, it has never been easier to be a wrestling fan, despite the fact there being so much content to consume, because you can do it through people like me, you can do it through things like YouTube, obviously you get the clips on social media. WWE uploads Raw and SmackDown 24 hours or less than 24 hours after they're done. AEW's doing the same. Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan, well, no, New Japan needs to embrace YouTube more. Different conversation for a different day. But when I heard John Cena talking about this, I just think it's what makes wrestling so interesting. So on the one hand, I can't argue with you, John, and why would I? You're way more knowledgeable than I. But everything you're saying is the truth. It just is. But Roman Reigns wouldn't be my GOAT. Now listen, I want to make it very clear. I think he's genuinely one of the best ever. I truly think that because I think he fits the WWE model so well. And everything he goes out to do, he just totally smashes it. And by all accounts as well, backstage, he's just a damn hero. But yes, because for whatever reason, other people have taken my attention away. And there's no right to wrong to this. There's ups and downs, no lefts or rights. It's just the way that my brain has worked throughout this period. And also, yeah, I think those 5 years when he was doing Suffering Succotash and all of that, it just wasn't somebody I was necessarily interested in because there were other people that I wanted to watch instead. But you can honestly do this till the cows come home. Everybody's going to have a different opinion. Somebody watching this could actually make a claim that the Brooklyn Brawler is one of the best of all time, right? Because he was an incredible enhancement talent that had an incredibly long career. And without him being so selfless that he would allow people to come in and work with them and teach them the ropes and give them the experience, maybe they don't go on to get on that pedestal that they eventually did. Do you know who credits the Brooklyn Brawler for his early days? The Rock. Dwayne Johnson. Now, he's so talented, I'm sure he would have found his way and got onto Hollywood regardless. But it's sliding doors. And if the Brooklyn Brawler wasn't the type of guy that was like, I get it, Vince McMahon, you want me to turn this guy into something that he's not at the moment, I will do my best. And then they would just go and work on the house show tours for ages. Like at one point, I think it was like 93 and then again in 95, it was twice. We made Steve Lombardi, the real name Brooklyn Brawler, was his name Abe Knuckleball Schwartz or something stupid like that. He's a baseball character because there was an MLB strike and Vince McMahon can't help himself. Now, the gimmick sucked anyway, but it barely lasted any amount of time just because all of a sudden people were like, no, we need Steve to be to use the terms that we all use, although I actually agree with Dustin Rhodes, maybe it is a little bit too disparaging, we don't mean it to be. He was the ultimate job guy because he was really, really good at working and understood what his role was. And without someone like that, we don't know where we get today, as I do unnecessary pointing. So once more, tell me he's one of the GOATs. I'm like, okay, I see where you're coming from. It wouldn't be on my list, but I get it. And look, would I put Repo Man on my list? There is certainly a list where I would, because he was the guy that taught me what pro wrestling is. People think I just picked a random name, Repo Man. I mean, it's the dumbest gimmick ever, which makes it all time. But no, one of the reasons I like Repo Man so much is because, like, wow, in wrestling, you can do whatever you want as long as everybody involved agrees to it. There's no such job as, well, there is a job as repossessing, but there's no such job as stealing and saying that you're a repossessor. That's just thievery, and you would absolutely go to jail, but that's just the way that it was handled. And he sold Macho Man's hat, and who else knew what he was going to do? But yes, it really did open my eyes to how fun and creative you can be. Even if it's dog crap creative, it doesn't matter. The fact that we can still go out there and do it is what wrestling makes so special. And we can pivot, right? We just talked about the baseball character. It's not working. Let's go back to what was working. Kind of ties into the Drew McIntyre CM Punk stuff, although I think actually some people jumped the gun. They thought we were moving away from the braceless stuff, and I was totally cool with that if the WWE powers that be had decided that we don't think it's clicking with the audience, but now they started talking about it again. But only in wrestling can you do that. Like if you shoot a 10-episode TV series and it's in the can, your story is your story, no matter what the backlash is. Even in video games. Do you remember, what's it called? Not Bioshock, Mass Effect, right? Mass Effect 3. Nobody liked Ghost Kid at the end of 3. I know spoilers. You've had 10 years to play it, probably longer. You should have played it by now. BioWare actually released a different ending. Now, I didn't like the ending to Mass Effect, but I like the fact that was their ending. I was like, okay, well, that's just something to go out there and discuss. I didn't like the fact they came back in and tweaked it. And with wrestling, you can do that. It's the only thing, because you are going week to week. You can change these things all the time. I just mentioned mentioned CM Punk. Some people think CM Punk is in the GOAT conversation. I understand that well. You see the kind of doors he opened when he was a quote-unquote indie wrestler. When you talk about promo ability, few have been able to do what he's been able to do. I mean, he stood toe-to-toe with The Rock, as he told us himself, like back in 2013, or whatever it was. So this is just a discussion that will go on forever, quite literally. Long after you and I have passed away and professional wrestling probably keeps on turning, you will be able to come up, like I said, with new parameters that just make this a fascinating chat. And I'll throw it in here, but I'll be wrong. Steve Austin's definitely going on my Mount Rushmore. Bret Hart is definitely going on my Mount Rushmore. Then I really kind of hit a line because the Macho Man Randy Savage sticks out to me because, again, when I was a kid, I just thought he was amazing. Like, who is this guy? Like, with the fancy outfits and the elbow drop and the goat roast and the Slim Jim, you got to snap into it. And then there's this fourth spot that you could throw anybody into, just focusing on wrestling. Like a Ric Flair would probably be an argument just for what he did. The Undertaker, if you're talking about stuff like gimmicks. But then there's an Arn Anderson, right? Arn Anderson was an incredible promo and he could talk you into the building. But did he make as much money as some wrestlers? No. Dusty Rhodes, he probably needs to be in the conversation. Cody Rhodes, if he keeps going the way he's going, is probably going to take over my life because I love that man. And I think he's absolutely tremendous. And then you have your more niche people, I suppose you like. Like mine is Miro Rusev. Very sadly, he's disappeared. But I've been talking about that since 2016, how much I like that guy. So I must have gravitated towards him in some respect. Then there's an AJ Styles who changed the game, a Samoa Joe who changed the game. And we haven't even got into Japanese talent, right? And that's why it's a crazy conversation. So to put somebody on top of the mantle, I think is awesome. And I think we should do it. But I just love the fact that it can be so individualistic. Although John Cena has decided, ain't The Rock, ain't Steve Austin, it is 100% Roman Reigns. And I know loads of people are going to be agreeing to this. And I think that's cool. Raise your ones, because he is the one. Now listen, get into those comments and have a proper debate about this. I think it could be really interesting and it could actually breed another video, should we wish to do that at some point. Also, please do like the video, share the video and subscribe. Click the bell, ding ding, notification crew, bang. Click the video on the screen for some of my fantasy booking, because I am a nerd. Otherwise, go to grillermind.com/Simon, use code SIMON, get 10% off. It's shipping worldwide. These are the fitness supplements that I use because I think they're the best. It is a go fitness and Simon20 for money off that too. Patreon.com/Simon316. Come and follow me on all social media at Simon316. Come book yourself a cameo at Simon Miller. Come follow me on TikTok at Simon J. Miller and ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller. Buy a tea today for your significant other. Even if she doesn't like me, well, that would be quite funny. I'll see you on the next one.